This is Johnny. I want to welcome you to Night Signals. I think night's the right place to take this feeling that a lot of us have. A lot of us. I'm talking about frustration, anger, outrage, befuddlement at what this country has become. I mean, you feel it all day, right? Sometimes. It creeps up on you. It's this layer of disbelieving rage. Like, how did we end up here? Whatever we thought this country was, the United States, it just isn't that anymore. I mean, not unless you're MAGA. Not unless you're a right-wing evangelical kook who thinks you're ascendant now, holding on to your, octogenarian grievance and think that it's your time to take back what you think you lost, as if you're not still on top. You know, the craziest thing is not how we got here. The craziest thing is we were destined to be here. It was designed from the beginning to bring us here. And I'm not saying that the founders and the framers and people who signed or didn't sign the Constitution, I'm not saying that they said, let's start with Washington and end with Trump. Kind of like when you write a computer program. If you're a developer out there, if you've ever tried to write a script or a program, and you say, why is it doing this thing I don't want it to do? If you're a developer, you know the answer to that question. The answer to that question is because you told it to. You may not have meant to. You might have made a mistake. In fact, you certainly did. Because in general, you write the instructions, and those instructions are carried out. So if you want to get your mind around what the hell happened, start from that mindset. Because that's exactly what happened. So I want you to step in tonight. And I want you to realize that there is an answer. There is a way forward. But you weren't raised to know what it was. You weren't conditioned to expect something better. In general, we grew up in the box, and even though a lot of us fight our way, we try to do the intellectual self-defense thing, the overriding culture was written long before we were born, and it's been shaping you and me since the day that we were born. And you know this in a lot of parts of your life. If you're a woman, you know that that's what women are taught from their earliest days, what men are taught about women, what people are taught about others who don't look like them, what quote unquote white people are conditioned to think and assume about people who are not. If you are wondering what's wrong with the country right now, then you probably are well along the path of the progressive or the leftist, or at least a Democrat who's questioning things. One of those ones that wants us to fight, wants the Democrats to fight. You know who's paying them, but you want them to fight, and nevertheless. We're all conditioned. You know, our consent is manufactured in ways that we don't even know, even when we try to plumb the depths of it. It's kind of like our internalized, racism, our internalized sexism, our internalized homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism. Although that's getting a lot more play these days than it ought to. We'll get to that. I'm sure you know that we need to get to that. Is there a way forward? Yeah, there's a way forward. Is the way mapped out? No, we have to do it. How do we get there? We got to know how we got here. So I want you to settle in. And I'll give you my best shot at bringing context to this moment. Because, I said back there, the framers, the coders, the developers of our country some 250 some odd years ago thought they knew what the hell they were doing. And some respected framers, some forward thinkers at the convention, the Constitutional Convention I'm talking about, where they hammered this stuff out, they foresaw Donald Trump. And if they had gotten their way, there would be no President Donald Trump. But they were overruled. Some of the more respected ones got some concessions. But in the end, one man, the gravitas, the love and adoration, the reverence for one man enabled the framers to create a kingship in all but name. Waiting for somebody to stop having the respect to act like a president and instead to act like a king. And today we see why the doubters and the guys who refused to sign the Constitution, we now see why they didn't. It'd be really nice to go back and give them some context, but we can't. I mean, they threw out what they thought was the elements of the old thinking that removed liberty and dignity from the individual. But as a matter of fact, they threw out the baby with the bathwater, and they went a little farther than that too. Because if you look at where we came from in the United States, which is England, colonial, empirical, empire, England, the most ruthless, disgusting empire the world had ever seen in terms of the atrocities that they committed. We came from that, but look at them now. They've got health care. All of them. They're not us. Over here, you pay an arm and a leg to the insurance companies if you're lucky. And you do anything besides go to do a preventative care appointment with a doctor, and you get slapped with a bill, and you're like, didn't I just pay you $300, $400, $500, $600 a month? Didn't I already pay this? No, sure didn't. We are paying now what used to be Gold Star. Like if you are in a really good company, big company now, you used to have really good healthcare, and you probably still do by comparative standards to others. But when you get a bill from your doctor for $400 because you had a problem and you went in and saw them and got referred to a specialist, and you get a $500 bill, you're like, am I paying this every month for glorified catastrophic insurance? Yeah, you kind of are. In fact, a lot of people are. And that's one of the reasons for that rage right under the surface. That's just one thing that, the Mother Empire evolved to handle, and we didn't. Because the founders threw out the baby with the bathwater, and they threw out even more than that. It's part of how we got here. So we've got to understand the cracks in the army, on the armor of the Republic, we call it. You ever hear those weird Republicans and libertarians online? We're not a democracy, we're a republic. Yeah, ¿Por qué no las dos? Why can't you have? I believe, or at least we used. No, yep, we still do. Vote for representatives. Republic is a form of liberal democracy, so please, please, internet warriors, X people, stop saying we're a republic, not a democracy. I mean, we're kind of not a democracy now, but it's not because we're a republic. I mean, go on Wikipedia, it'll say we're one of the liberal democracies. That is the form. A republic is a democracy. Even back in the Roman times, they didn't just assign it from an emperor. There was a vote of some kind. Nowadays, everybody that's above 18 votes for the president, votes for the representatives. That is democracy. If you don't know what democracy is, it's that is people. Power of the people. You don't get to become the president. You don't get to become a representative or a senator on the national level or the local level without normal people voting for you. That's people power. Now, that's the form we have. That's the official form of democracy that we have. Now, do people think that they actually are able to vote people in who represent their views? No, not much. I mean, you're going to find for most people that that's not the case. In fact, it's pretty much never been the case. So the democracy deficit, yeah, that's there. And nowadays with President Donald Trump, the convicted criminal, the corrupt president, the dirty president, the sacking and looting of the Treasury president. That's what we've got now. How do we get out of this? Remember when he was voted in the first time? What was that, 2016? Is that right? Was that 2012? I think it was 2012. Trump's first term. Just looking it up. No, 2016, I was right. Donald Trump's first tenure as the President of the United States began on January 20th, 2017, when he was inaugurated as the 45th President. Don't have a great memory for dates, but I remember the disbelief I had when he beat Hillary Clinton that night. The embarrassment I felt. The feeling, even as a leftist, and I mean a real left, I'm a socialist. Even as someone who is harshly critical of power in this country, I felt like I had personally lost something. That we had been degraded. We'd been knocked down to a lesser form and aspiration. than we thought we had. If you're like me, you felt it since then, but if you're not like me and you feel it now, well, it hit you somewhere along the line. Maybe in the last year, and all fucking hell broke loose. So, maybe you feel alone in this, and you feel like you wonder if you're crazy. You're not crazy. You're seeing things as they are. And so many are that actually you probably don't feel alone like many of us did for many years. You're at least seeing a lot of people wandering around with question marks over their head like WTF is going on. And the problem is that the old ways of even trying to address problems in society, which means you can't go to the Republicans. They've been a farce since since probably the 90s. You know, the Newt Gingrich bullshit, contract with America, the movement republicanism. What did the movement really mean? The movement really meant moving your money into the pockets of people who already had too much, so much money that the idea of putting more zeros at the end of their net worth is just some abstract notion to them. They don't know how much money they have internally. They only know how much they have in relation to other people who have way too much. So it's kind of a hellscape, isn't it? It's kind of unbelievable. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why maybe I'll be here for a number of nights. Because I'm feeling hopeless too. Because I don't know what to do either. The only thing I really know is that everything we tried before doesn't work. So we need to figure out how to get to that place, don't we? And probably, almost certainly, what you do when you've gone too far down one path and you know you're going the wrong way is to go back to the beginning, find out what went wrong. If you're a developer, programmer, you go and find out where you made a mistake in your algorithms, in your code, in your script. You have to go back, could be months, into code you barely remember that you wrote. You have to get back into the mindset, the context, what you were doing. And when you find it, eventually you say, okay, there it is. That's the poison in the well. That's the poisonous tree that eventually caused problems with everything in the fruit it bore. Yeah, I know it's a legal term, but still, it's a good comparison to where we are as poisonous fruit and vines wrap around our ankles and make us wonder what this country might look like a year from now, 10 years from now. What kind of world are we bringing new people into? We're going to go back to the beginning, at least to some degree, and try to figure out where the bugs are. Because if we don't deal with them, whatever prescription some Democrat gives you will inevitably fail. We have a fundamental flaw in our society. Not one, but many, I'm sure. We need to track those down. It's not so much that we need to start building an idea of a better society. It's good to do that, but it's more that we need to understand what's wrong with ours. The new society does not emerge with the foundation of the broken society below it. We don't have the forms. We don't have the mechanisms. How do you get rid of a president who's out of control? How do you get rid of corrupt politicians? How do you address a Supreme Court full of lackeys to one president? The checks and balances don't really exist. I mean, they're there on paper, but there's a reason that every time Trump challenges them, they fall away. Because it's all polite handshake bullshit without an enforcement mechanism. So how do we build a new society? How do we evolve to a place where we can handle a Donald Trump and his Eddie Haskell scammer family and his corrupt neocon, burglar, robber, creeper cabinet and all their donors? How do you deal with all of them when there's no real mechanism? How do you move forward in society? Now, there is one thing you could do. I mean, if any one who came into power had the balls, you could prosecute all these people. You start putting politicians and former presidents in jail, where they belong, I might add. I guarantee you, if you started prosecuting these people and they started seeing the inside of jail cells, it's the last time you will ever see this level of corruption and lawlessness. Honestly, if you put one president in jail for their crimes, that's the last time you see this level of lawlessness, criminality, and corruption. But they're not going to do that because they know they could be next. Now, we want that to be the case. We want them to think they could be next. We want our politicians to stay on the straight and narrow because they serve the people. Or they're supposed to. But we don't have the mechanism to force that. We don't have the legality, the legal path, the appropriate way to enforce the idea that societies are made for people. Until we have that, the people will always serve the people who rule society. And until we address the chinks in the armor that enable perverse incentives, people like Elon Musk and other Jeff Bezos and a bunch of other, who's this Andreessen guy that keeps showing up on Joe Rogan, and all the other ones who remain nameless and sit back in the shadows and pull puppet strings with their money that they should not have. Till we have the mechanism to reduce those perverse incentives, to create a society. And when I say create a society that's for people, I don't mean a society that punishes the wealthy. I'm talking about a society that understands what wealthy is, and especially what inequality in wealth and resources does to the human psyche. Because most people are very similar. They're decent, they're good, and they're harmless. Now, if you set up a society where accumulation of wealth is a virtue, you're going to get a good amount of people who are pretty psychopathic getting to the top. But even the good ones, let's say the Warren Buffetts, the ones who say, well, this is bullshit, we shouldn't be having all this money. I haven't noticed that he's been giving away significant amounts of his money, but the point is that if you see yourself as a good person and you start accumulating so much money that your wealth has become many times the amount that a normal person could even imagine themselves having, you have to justify that. I guarantee you Jeff Bezos doesn't walk around saying, I have all this money and I keep it for myself and I have a yacht that has a mini yacht coming out of it because I'm a bad person. Guarantee you he thinks he's good. And in order to think that you're good with that obscene amount of wealth, while people suffer, while people don't have health care, while people live on the streets, while people don't have living wages, the only way to think you're good in that society with that kind of money is to think that the people below you are bad. And that's why you say, well, why are they so stingy? Because they don't see you as deserving of wealth. If you were deserving, you would have the same as them. That is the perversity and the warping of the mind that ultra wealth causes, and that's why we've got to get rid of it. That's one of the problems, and that's one of the things we don't really have the mechanism to deal with, because the people with the money are the ones buying the politicians who make the laws, and everybody knows this. It's under the surface. It's over the surface. Every American knows this. That's why raising taxes on the rich has always been popular, because the rich have too much, and their stupid foundations and their philanthropy are window dressing for their own ego. Somebody said once, I thought it was a good sentiment, that if you're giving back, it means that you took too much. If you are giving back, it means you took too much. So, even if we know what's wrong, if you don't have the path to address what's broken, if there's no mechanism, how can you possibly fix what's wrong? That's what I want to get into. And I want to get into it over a few sessions, or 3 or 10, whatever it takes. I certainly don't present myself as a political pundit, someone that should be listened to, or someone who deserves to be listened to, or someone who thinks they're special. I don't. I just want to provide a night signal. Because when I'm laying awake at night with those feelings, that frustration, that borderline despair, you know what I'm talking about. We're not really despairing, but it's quite borderline, isn't it? I want to hear a voice in the dark that knows what I'm going through. Someone who will meditate on the dynamics that a person goes through, that a group goes through, that a society goes through, to try to work out their problems in a way that is human-centric. So, as you can see, I don't speak quickly. I'm not particularly fast on the draw when it comes to mental to verbal agility. I'm not performing. I'm just someone who's here. Someone who is on the borderlands that many of us feel we're on at night, trying to slow our thoughts down, trying to figure out how to navigate through some of the most treacherous waters we've ever been through. And when I say the most treacherous waters that we've ever been through, I mean I'm Gen X. I'm come from the 70s, where I grew up in the 70s and 80s. Wondering if they're going to drop the bomb or not. Latchkey Kid, Schoolhouse Rock, the whole Reality Bites thing. And if you were to ask me, has it ever been this bad? No, not really. Not in my experience. This is about as bad as I've ever seen it. Not just about, it is the worst I've ever seen it. So I'm creating a night signal. Could be into the ether, could be into the void. Doesn't really matter. It's an expression from one person, a normal person, an upset person, to anyone that might need to hear it. I will try to continue this sequence of thought for myself and people like me who are wondering, how did we get here? How do we fix it? How did it get this bad? The good thing is that you are seeing things the way they are. If you can see the way things are now, you can see things the way they used to be. You can see how we got here. So let's figure it out together. This is Johnny, and I'm your night signal.